Hi there, I'm Eitan, and welcome back to the Wix Wiz. Today we're going to be talking about A/B testing on your Wix website within the Wix ecosystem. So using only tools that come with your Wix website, how can we do A/B testing from making a small change on our site, like changing this button from orange to green, releasing and disseminating our two versions, and tracking which one is actually converting better and declaring a winner. So if you want to learn how to do all that and more, let's get started. Okay, so first of all, let's talk a little bit about what A/B testing is. And essentially, it's just another name for running experiments on your website. And what kind of experiments? These are experiments that are meant to determine what certain layout or functionality, something in the UX or the UI, will provide better results for your website. And there are several elements to creating an A/B test. One is determining the change that you're going to make. So what is the change that I'm going to make in the layout or the user experience? And what is the conversion goal? What is the result that I'm hoping to see? So am I hoping to see more people going to a specific page or downloading a specific brochure or buying a certain product or something along those lines? And those are essentially the two things that we're going to want to focus on when we're determining what our A/B test is going to be. After we've determined what our test is going to be, we actually have to implement it on our website. And that's what we're going to be discussing today. Typically, these experiments are done by essentially creating two versions of either a page on your site or your entire site and sharing one of those two versions with different sets of users. So that's where the term A/B comes from. So you have version A and version B, and you can determine a certain split. So let's say version A is seen by 50% of the people and version B is by another 50%, or let's say 90-10. And based on which version performs better, we will determine a winner. So we'll say, okay, this one got the most conversions, this one got the most sales, so this one is a better layout, it's a better user experience. Let's make this the permanent version and run another test, for example. And there are different approaches for how we can essentially disseminate these different versions between users, and that's part of what we're going to talk about today. It's important to note that there are certain softwares out there, for example, this one, Crazy Egg, which facilitate the creation of different versions of pages and sites. But today I am choosing to keep us entirely within the Wix ecosystem. So without the help of any external tools, how can we do A/B testing on our Wix website? So today I would like to share two different approaches that you can take for A/B testing on your Wix website. I'm not saying that these are the only approaches, these are just two that I happen to think of. One will be based on creating two completely different versions of a landing page, and another one will depend on utilizing the Wix versioning system in order to keep track of a change and its results. So let's hop in and start off with creating two landing pages. So here what I'm going to do, I'm just using a template from the Wix Studio kind of template market. And everything I'm showing you here can be done as well on a classic Wix website, but I'm choosing to use Wix Studio today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here into my site pages, and I'm going to select this, let's say, book a demo page. Okay, so this is a page which possibly could be used as a landing page. For example, if I'm running ads on, let's say, Facebook or Google or something like that, I could decide to use this page. Maybe I want to fluff it up a little bit, but let's say I decide to use this page as the landing page for my website. So if I want to now conduct A/B testing, I could essentially go ahead and just duplicate this book a demo page. So let me go ahead and let's say duplicate that. And let me call this, for example, book a demo call this Book a Demo B. And I'm going to go here into the SEO basics, and I can change this. So instead of Book a Demo 1, it'll be, let's say, Book a Demo B. And I can go ahead and change the layout of this page. So for example, instead of having these two columns side by side, let's instead try and have them, let's see, columns. So I'm going to change this to rows. Okay, so instead of having it side by side, we have one on top of the other. So I want to see which layout is going to perform better. Will it be this top layout, or will it be the bottom? Will it be, sorry, will it be this list layout, or will it be the kind of side-by-side layout? I don't know. And then I can just go ahead and publish these changes. And when I'm running my Facebook ads or my Google ads, I can decide to run half my ads, let's say, with the original Book a Demo page and half with the Book a Demo B. Okay, and this is my dissemination approach. Okay, because we have to also figure out how we're tracking these conversions, but also how we are disseminating the different versions of our A/B test between users. So here, since I'm using advertising, I am choosing to essentially build two pages, and half of my ads, or a certain percentage of my ads, will run with page A, and a certain will run with page B, and that's how I know that I have a certain amount of people who are being exposed to each version. And you need to think about other things here as well, like, are the ads exactly the same? Are the ads targeting the same audiences, right? Because these are all things that can throw off your experiments. It's a very scientific thing, so you have to kind of think with a scientific mindset here. But assuming that all is the same from the advertising side, this should be a good experiment as to which one of these page converts better. That said, we still have to think one more level deeper as to, once our audiences reach these pages, how are we going to keep track of conversions on these pages? So let's hop in and discuss that. So we have two versions of a page, each with a different layout, and we've dealt with the dissemination via advertising. But now we need to think about, okay, how do I keep track of which of these two is doing better in terms of the goals that I set for my experiment? And the answer to this is largely dependent on what those goals are. So let's take, for example, this page that we built. Here, we actually have it quite easy because we have forms. Okay, so it's most likely that the goal of this page is to get a user to fill out one of these forms. So I can just keep track of submissions for each of these forms, and that way I know if form A got more submissions, then that's the winner. If form B got submissions, then that is the winner. Another typical conversion would be some form of button click. So let me go ahead and add in a button here. I'm just going to add in another cell, and I'm going to add a button. Okay, so let's say this Start Now button, and that's going to be the button that is considered a conversion. So if somebody clicks on this Start Now button, then that means that this landing page was a success. This is considered a win in terms of, our goals, and if one page gets more clicks than the other, then that page is the winner. So I'm going to go ahead and also add that to our original page, because it wouldn't be fair if only one of the pages had the thing that could actually make it win the experiment. Let's say I'll add it over here on the bottom. Okay. And what we're going to do here is we're going to explore a no-code tool that Wix provides. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to publish these changes. And we're going to hop here into our dashboard, where we're going to be taking a look at this button clicks analytics. So this is part of your built-in website analytics that Wix provides. And I found this by going to, I think it was behaviors, and then I had like a little, like a toast or something that I could go through. But you could always just use the search tool up here and just search for like button clicks or something like that. Or play around here in the analytics. Here it's under all reports, button clicks. Okay. And essentially what this should do, to be honest, this is 100% the first time that I am using this. But what it should do is it should track the clicks of buttons on your website. And this is exactly what we need because we need to see which button is getting more clicks. So I'm just going to go over here and enable click tracking. Okay, and it says that it's enabled. And then hopefully after some people visit our site, so let's for example go to our site and let's go to the page, what was it, book a demo. Okay, so this is our A. And let me go ahead and click here now on the Start Now button. It's not going to do anything, of course, because we didn't set up any kind of functionality. Let me just click it a few times, and maybe I'll even do that from like an incognito tab, because I'm not sure if it counts clicks like per session or per user, and that might also be something that you want to differentiate kind of in the goals that you're setting. Okay, so I've clicked a few times, and let's head here back into the dashboard. And I'm curious to see if we'll already see results here for the button clicks. It might not show just yet because it might take some time for them to kind of gather. Yeah, so it says the clicks reports will show in a couple hours. I'll check back here at the end of the tutorial to see if we see anything. But if not, um, yeah, it might just take a few hours and I might need to circle back inside the comments and let you know if this worked and how this worked. But I'm assuming that you see some kind of indication of what page the button's on, what the kind of name of the button is. Maybe it does it using the Velo ID or something along those lines, and then how many clicks it got. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm hoping to see here, but we'll circle back. And we'll also explore later on in this tutorial some more hands-on ways where you can actually manually, using a little bit of code, track the button clicks, and that way you wouldn't have to be dependent on systems like this. Obviously, you don't only have to use the Wix analytics. You can also install, as I said, third parties, if not for building the entire A/B test, but just for the tracking of the clicks, let's say something like Google Analytics or something along those lines. So there are really different avenues that you can go, but generally this is the end of the first approach where we built two separate landing pages and we used an advertising, and again, it doesn't have to be paid advertising. It could be like on your own platforms, let's say one link you put in Instagram or one link you put in Facebook, or find some creative way of disseminating the two links between different sets of people and setting up some form of tracking based on your goals. Obviously, there can be more goals than just forms and buttons, but I'm just providing those two as examples, and the other ones you'll have to think about yourself or ask in the comments below, and we can brainstorm them together or on the WixWiz forum. And now I want to hop into another method for A/B testing that is a little more hands-on. It'll require a little bit of code, but it will handle the dissemination within your Wix website, so you won't have to depend on any kind of advertising or dissemination method that's outside of your website itself. So for this second approach, we are going to be using the site versioning, or essentially the release manager, it's called, within Wix. And the way this will work is we're going to make a small change to one of our pages and create a test site. After we create the test site, we will release that version, that test site, only to some users. And let's hop in and see how that looks. So here I am on my home page, and I'm just going to be making a subtle change. It's important to make sure first that our site is published. So I'm just making sure that our site is published. And now I'm going to head over here to this button, for example. Okay, if I can get to it. Here we go. And I want to run a little experiment and see if this button is better as orange or perhaps green. Okay, maybe a green background will lead to more conversions for this button. So I'm just going to change it to a green background. And now, instead of publishing my site, okay, that would essentially launch the green button to all of my users. What I'm going to do is I'm going to head over here to Site, and I'm going to create a test site. Okay, so this is a site that is now only available via this URL. So if I click View Test Site, it will take me to the version of the site with the green button. But all of my other users still see the regular orange button. And you can see here that up on top, you can see site revision equals 7. So that means that this version is 7, and likely the previous version is 6, or sometimes it jumps 2, so it's 5. And that's going to be important later on when we're trying to keep track of which version is converting better. So let me go over here back to the editor, and you can see here that we also are presented with the option of managing exposure. Okay, so set the percentage of visitors who will see this version of your site. So instead of having it exposed only on this URL right over here, okay, we'll also be able to have it automatically presented to some users when they navigate to the main domain. So I'm going to go here to the release manager, and this is going to open up part of our dashboard. And you can see here that we can see what the two versions are. So here we have version 6, as I guessed, and that's the live site. And we have this test site, which is version 7. This is with our updated button. And you can see here that we also have exposure levels. So here we have an exposure level of 100 at the moment and an exposure level of 0 for the test site. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go over here to these 3 dots, and we're going to edit exposure. So I'm going to say that this version exposure should be 50%. And I'm going to click Save. And now that means that essentially half the people that visit our site should see our live site, and half the people should see our test site, which is essentially the B of our experiment now. So this is A, live site is A, and test site is B. So that handles the part of the dissemination. Now we have to hop in and think, how do I now track which one of these two sites is achieving our conversion goal, which is going to be a click on the button. So in order to handle the tracking, we are going to use a little bit of Velo code. And in this case, I really am not sure if we could use any third-party tools in order to do this, because it requires knowledge of which version or which revision of the Wix site we're looking at. Are we looking at 6 or 7? And I'm not sure that is information that a tracking tool can somehow get hold of. I may be wrong. If you know of some way, then please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. But I'm going to show a way to handle it all in-house, which will save you the need for some third-party tracking tools, and it'll let you completely customize this entire method of tracking. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, we're going to need to turn on code mode or dev mode. So let's go ahead and start coding. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build a CMS collection. Okay, so let's go over here to the CMS, my collections, and I'm going to go ahead and create a collection. And this is going to be the collection that stores the information about button clicks. So how many times was each version clicked? So let's call this, let's say, tracker. And what we're going to do here is we're going to need to have essentially 2 items. And each item is going to track the clicks of a specific revision. So here I'm going to go ahead and add a field for clicks, and this is going to be a number field. Let me see if I can find that number. And I'm going to call this clicks. And essentially what I'll do here is I'll just add here, for example, 6 and 7. Okay, so one for version 6 and one for version 7. And here we will increment the clicks every time there's a click on the button for either 6 or 7. I'll make a note here that this is a super simplified approach to this. It's totally viable and legitimate if you're only running this single experiment and you don't want to collect any metadata about the clicks on the button. If you are running multiple experiments, then you might want to create a slightly more sophisticated setup where you're tracking like also the name of the experiment or what button it is or something along those lines. And if you want, you can also create a new line item for every single click which would essentially allow you to track other metadata, let's say like when that click happened, like the hour, like the created date of that click, maybe some information about the user that made the click. So that's if you really want to drill down and get information about that. If we have time at the end, maybe I'll show that approach as well, but I don't want to make the tutorial too long. So this is a super, super simplified approach, and we're just going to be incrementing the clicks when the button is clicked for version 6, so we'll increment one here, and when the button is clicked for version 7, we'll increment one here. So that is in terms of setting up our collection. Let's just make sure that our permissions look good. This is going to be a super private collection, so we're going to have everything set to only admin, and we're going to handle all of the updates of this collection via our backend. Okay, so now that we've set up our collection, let's head over to our backend and set up the web method that we'll use in order to update that collection. So I'm going to go over here to code, and I'm going to head here to public backend and public, and I'm going to create a new backend file over here, and let's just call this tracker. And then here inside of the file, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all this introductory code over here, and we'll just make adjustments to this existing web method that we have over here. So over here, what I'll say is, let's say update tracker, and this will be set to permission anyone, because anybody on the site, we want them to be able to update when they click the button. And as a parameter, what we'll take is just the site version. Okay? Then over here, we'll discuss what we'll return later on, but we're going to want to make a query of our collection, and we're going to want to make an update. So for that, we're going to need to use Wix data. So let's import Wix data. And what we'll do over here is we'll run a query. So we'll say const query, let's say tracker query result equals to await. I'm using asynchronous here, so we'll want to put the async keyword before our parameter over here inside. This is essentially the function. And what we'll want to do here is we'll say await Wix data dot query, and we're going to get our version. We're going to get our item essentially by the version, and I put it lazily. I put it lazily under the title column, so the name of the field is still title. And the name of the collection, let me just make sure that I get the name correctly. So I'm going to go here, it's tracker. Okay, I blanked on that for a second. So here we're going to have the name of the collection, which is tracker, and we're going to dot equals, and we're going to say the field, which is title, should be equal to the version. And we're going to find using suppress off because we set the permissions all to admin only. So it's going to be suppress off is true. Okay, so that's our query. And this should find one of those two items based on if we pass in here 6 or 7. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say const item to update equals to tracker query result dot items 0 because we're only expecting to really get one item back. We could say here that, for example, if tracker query result dot items dot length is smaller than 1, then we'll just return. Okay, so we won't do anything if we don't get any result back, if we don't get any items back from the query. If we do, then we'll say that the item to update is the item that we got, and we will essentially want to increment the clicks by 1, right? That's what we call that field, clicks. So we'll say item to update dot clicks plus plus. Okay, so that should increment the clicks by 1. And because we're not telling it how many clicks it got, we're assuming that we're calling this function every time a click happens. And then all we have to do is run an update. So we can say here const updated item equals to await Wix data. dot Wix data dot update, and the field is still tracker. And we're going to pass in the item to update, and we'll have to remember to suppress auth here as well. So here we're going to say suppress auth is true. And now what we could do is we could just return this updated item, and this will indicate to us that the item was updated successfully if we get an updated item on the front end. Otherwise, what we'll do is we'll wrap this all inside of a try catch. Grab all this, put this in the try, and we'll log any errors that we got. So console.log error updating tracker, and we'll have here error. Okay, so this is a pretty simple setup. And what we can do is we can test this in the back end. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and I'll click run right over here. And then for the version, I will pass in, let's say 6, and I'll go ahead and click run. And it was returned with 6, and clicks is null. Okay, so that is probably my fault because initially I didn't put any numbers in the collection. So I could have set up this function a little better, that if it's null, then it'll set it to 0, let's say, or something like that. Or I can just go here into my collection and set each of those clicks initially to be 0. Okay. So let's give it another spin. And this is why it's great to test it in the back end first, because you find all these things really easily as opposed to launching it in the front end and then like it gets harder to debug. So let's try that again. So I'm going to run this again with version 6. And see, now it says here clicks 1. Okay, and I'm going to run it again. And now it says clicks 2. Okay, right over here. And if I change this to 7, then it should run, and we should have here, again, clicks 1. Awesome. So this seems to be working as expected. I'm just going to go back into our collection and reset these to 0 so that we have some accurate tracking later on. And now all we need to do is go and set up the front end, so on the page that has the button itself, and track the clicks there. So here we are on the front end. This is the home page where that button is that we made the change to. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import the lovely backend function that we wrote. So update tracker from backend / tracker .web, I think we called it. Looks right. And then over here inside of my onReady, or more exactly right below it, I am going to create a new function. And this is going to be an asynchronous function that is going to handle the click of the button. So let's say handle button click. And what we're going to do here is we're going to need to get the version of our site. And in order to do that, we are going to use this API. So this is part of the Velo API, and it's from Wix Site Frontend, and it's called revision. Okay, so we're going to essentially import this revision from Wix Site Frontend. We could do it here, or we can kind of tree shake. Yeah, and this should have the latest version of the site. So if it's like, or the current version, so if it's 6, then 6, if it's 7, then 7. So let's go ahead and try this out. So I'm going to go ahead and import this here. So I'm going to go and say import revision, from Wix site frontend. And then what we're going to say here is that const updated item equals to await update tracker, and we're just going to pass in the revision, which I hope is a string. I'm pretty sure it's a string based on what we saw in the documentation. And then let's just here, let's say log console.log updated item and updated item. Not that, updated item. And last but not least, we will attach this as an event listener to our button. So let me go ahead and give that button a nice little name. So let's say here, this is going to be our experiment button. And then we are going to want to name that over here, experiment button dot on click and handle button click. Awesome. So we set that up. And now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to publish the site, which, yeah, in retrospect, not that it's a big deal, but we need to set up the experiment after we already have the infrastructure in place. And that is because for this code and for our collection to exist in both versions, essentially what we need to do is we need to make sure that this code is published before we make the change and release the test version. Because once we publish now, essentially we erase the whole release management that we set up. So I'm happy that I encountered it now together with you so that you don't encounter it alone. And it's not a big deal, so we're just going to have to make some small changes. So first of all, I'm going to publish the site, and we're going to make some changes to the collection, and then we should be up and running and ready to test this out. Okay, so let's walk through what needs to happen now for this to work after we have the code set up. So we need to publish the site again, but we're also going to need to make some adjustments to the collection. Luckily, because we didn't hard code the versions into, let's say, the fields or anything like that, we can make the collection changes also after we publish. So I'm going to go ahead and first of all, I'm going to revert this back to our original color. Hopefully I have it stored here somewhere conveniently. Was it that? I think it was that. Okay, so I'm going to restore this to our original color, and I'm going to publish my site. Okay, so this is now the default of the site, and if we go to the release manager and I give a refresh here, what we should see is that there's currently only one version, and it's the live site. So let's go over here. Yeah, so now we're back only to one version, version 8. So we need to create a new test site. So I'm going to go here back into the editor. I'm going to make that change again back to green. And I'm going to create a test site. It's good, it's practice. Do it twice and you forget less. So create test site. Okay, done. And here I am in the release manager. I'm just going to give it another refresh so it knows that we have that test site version to play with as well. And I'm going to edit the exposure to be about 50-50. Save. Awesome. So now we have version 8 and version 9, so we need to update that in our collection. So I'm going to go over here to the collection, tracker, and this just needs to be changed to 8 and 9. Okay, so now that we've republished, we've adjusted our collection, we're ready to do some testing. And we want to see, first of all, is this tracking working at all? And are we seeing two different versions of the site about 50-50? And I don't know if maybe I need to close the browser and reload the site a few times, or if I'm using the same browser, it should still work. There isn't a lot of documentation about how this release manager actually works, but let's play around with it and see what we can figure out. So I'm just going to load the site. So I got version 7, okay, version A, and I'm just going to click try for free. Awesome. And I came to the book to this page. So let's first check and see if we registered that click at all. So I'm going to go here back into the editor, and I'm going to head to our collection, your collections, tracker, and yeah, so we have one click for version 8. Okay, so it seems to be working. And now we just need to get version 9 somehow. And theoretically, if it's 50-50, then if we load the site a few times, then we should get version B at least, or, you know, I don't want to get into a statistical discussion here, but we should see B at least a few times. So let's go ahead and try that out. So let me try reloading here and see if that does anything. So I seem to only be getting A. So let me try, let's see, maybe we need to Let's try in a different browser. Still getting A. I mean, it makes sense. It's fine. We'd have to load a few times. So I'm going to try this again and again until I get B, and then I'll reconnect with you. Okay, so I've been trying for a few minutes. I still haven't gotten B. I took a look here. I notice here that it says saved. It may be a minute before your changes take effect. So it could be that they're putting it lightly, and it's really more than a minute. It could be it takes time for these things to propagate and to start going into play, and that would make sense. It would just be nice to know how long that takes. Um, so what I'm going to do at the moment is I'm just going to show. So let's go ahead and open version 9, and I'm going to click the button here in version 9, and then let's go back into our editor and just check and see here in the tracker. Oh, it still says 6 here. Okay, so this needs to be 9. And let me go ahead back here to version 9. Where's version 9? Too many tabs open. This is version 9. I'm going to go ahead and give it a click. And let me go back into the editor. And there we go. So we have one click here for version 9. So fundamentally it is working. Like we see here that for the different versions we track the clicks separately. So that's fundamentally working. The last piece of the puzzle is for the release manager to actually work. And I've been trying to like read up on it a bit, and I'm going to put the link to this site below so you can also go in, and maybe by the time you're watching this video, it will all be up and running. I'm also going to reach out to Wix to see if this is the expected behavior. Because I also noticed here, for example, like they have this logs feature here in the release manager, and if you click get started, it doesn't really do anything. So, like, it worries me that this might be like, I mean, it can't be an underbaked feature because it's been around forever, but maybe it's been kind of ignored lightly. So I hope it's still working. I'm happy I'm testing it now. Yeah, so I'm definitely going to be in touch with Wix about that, but it could be it just takes some time. So it could be it takes a few hours even. I don't know how long it takes. Like, and that would be totally fine. Like, I'm not trying to say that that's a problem. It is a problem though that you don't know if it's working or not, which would be nice. As I said, we were going to check again our button clicks here at the end. So let's go ahead for the first experiment that we ran. So let's see if we can find button clicks. So we have here tracking tools, analytics. Let's see, one more result. I don't see it here, so let's try and find it through the analytics. I found it before through behavior and analyze buttons on your site new. Like, but that thing, I think that banner might only be there because it's new. Tracking is enabled, so I don't see this here either. Which is a little disappointing. I would have wanted to. Um, yeah, but that is the principle behind it. I'm sorry we don't have like very concrete results to show for to like encourage you to actually do this on your site. But those are the basics for setting up, or at least two ways that I've discovered for doing A/B testing on your Wix website within the Wix environment. So like no external tools. Again, these are very simple examples, but they are the foundation for more complex things that you can do, such as, for example, tracking a user that clicks a certain button and seeing if that user in the end makes a purchase or something like that. So even more complex scenarios that might involve several links. For that, you might need to track the clicks in a different manner, like I mentioned earlier, by actually capturing every single click and the metadata surrounding it, maybe by using sessions to store information, etc. But these two approaches I feel are the foundation for doing A/B testing within the Wix ecosystem on your Wix website. I hope you found it informative, and if not exactly what you need, then at least thought-provoking. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more like this every week, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time. Okay, so it's been a few weeks, or about a little over a week, and I just wanted to follow up on this because I headed back here into the dashboard, specifically the buttons click analytics page, and here I now do see the results, and this is without me making any additional changes to what I've showed you so far in the tutorial, so it just took some time for the results to show up. It's hard for me to pinpoint exactly. It was probably less than a week, but definitely a week later, I'm seeing it. And we can see here, so essentially a list of all the buttons that have been clicked and details about the button and specifically what page they're on, which is what would help us determine which of our two landing pages got most clicks. Remember, this was what we used for when we had one landing page with version A and one with B. In addition, I also talked to the Wix team a little bit about the fact that we weren't seeing the A/B testing from the release manager. And I just want to show you here. So now I loaded the site and I'm seeing version B. If you remember before all my testing, we were seeing only version A. And I haven't made any additional changes. Basically, what they told me is that I should use a VPN to do the testing. And from that, I infer, again, I haven't gotten confirmation about it, but I infer that instead of being based on just a visit to the site, so for example, opening the browser, going into incognito, it's actually more IP based. Like they know if you're the same user, if you are visiting the site from the same IP address. And even if you switch around browsers and do incognito and stuff like that, at least that's what I can deduce based on the feedback that they gave me and the experiments that we ran where we were trying with incognito and stuff. So I just wanted to tell you that it confirmed does work. Okay, there's no bug. It's not some dormant feature that hasn't been looked at for a while. It does work. It's just the way that they do the split between the releases is not how I assumed. And there's still some mystery there, but it definitely does work. So this is also a valid approach for doing your A/B testing. That's all the update for now. And yeah, see you next time.